I am so pleased to be with you today, and I'm going to be just clicking on to share the deck. So we're just going to scroll through some of our comments. I just want to introduce myself. First of all, my name is Heidi Ram, and I lead our firm's product practice at Martyn Bassett Associates. And today we're coming together. I'll be your host to cover a really key webinar topic that so many of our clients, our CEOs and founders often want to talk about, which is all of the detail around hiring your first product leader. Our product practice is called The Product Recruiter. And it's such a pleasure to be with you today. Our business is focused on really working with startups and scale-ups, organizations who have made the decision that product is foundational to the business that they are going to be building. Most of our clients are B2B SaaS companies, oftentimes companies whose revenues are less than 10 million, less than 20 million ARR, but with visions to get to scale. We're based in Toronto, Canada, but the scope of our work is North American. And as the product practice lead, I spend all of my time engaging with chief product officers and vice presidents of product, as well as founders and CEOs who are on a journey to making that level of a hiring decision. We have got a lot to cover today, and so I do appreciate that you're joining us most likely on your lunch if you're on Eastern Standard Time, or kicking off your morning if you're on Pacific Time. We're going to cover a lot, starting with all of the key things to making a hiring decision, really focusing on product leadership personas. You're going to notice that I'm not going to be talking so much about titles, but more about personas and experiences that are important to the clients who engage us. But why don't we begin first with what is product management? I don't have to tell you who Marty Kagan is. He is certainly the godfather of the product function. And Marty Kagan describes product as the ability to discover a product that is valuable, usable, and feasible. And my goodness, doesn't that sound easy? Shreyesh Doshi has really risen in popularity as the modern voice for product leaders everywhere. And I love how he begins to introduce the idea of product management, including art and science, and really the practice of making products successful. But I want to talk about what most founders are likely to agree product management is to them in their businesses. Most founders will agree that product management is the single most critical hire that they're going to make for their business, and that the function really is the key function to unlocking the value, both value in the products that you are selling, that you are trying to deliver to your customers. That product management unlocks product market fit, and all of which unlocks growth. And I'm not just talking about any kind of growth, but the buzzy term today is always growth at scale. Organizations, founders, CEOs like you are always wondering, how are we going to drive growth at scale to capture as much market share as we can, to increase the value of our business, increase the valuation of our organization, both for the investors and for the organization itself. And all of this really does mean that this is the type of hire that you cannot afford to get wrong. All eyes are on you as the founder CEO when it is time to hire your first product leader. And anyone who is an investor of early stage companies is always very involved and takes a very interesting point of view on the decisions that you are making as the business founder and CEO. I want to begin our session today thinking about the first two big questions that you want to ask yourself when it comes to hiring your first product leader. Are you hiring for who you are today in your business? Or are you hiring for who you will become? This is foundational to everything else that we're going to talk about. Because if the persona of leader who you need is someone who is going to be solving for the immediate, almost house on fire problem sets that you have, or if you're hiring someone for a longer term journey of where you're trying to take the business, the answer to these two questions here is really going to be the foundation from which everything else is going to flow that we're now going to talk about. I love how Gibson Biddle describes the journey of a product leader. We can thank Gibson for Netflix. That's how influential of a product leader he is. And he describes the journey of a product leader as a career that begins building products. 0 to 1, getting products to find product market fit. And then the journey for a product leader is to figure out how to build products that become successful, a hit product, as he would describe it. Then the journey of a product leader's career moves from being a persona of leader who builds products and ones that are successful to building an organization. Thinking about the larger organization that wraps around and is a part of product, where we're thinking about how design fits in, or how data fits in, and how research fits in. And then that leader moves to building a company. So they're not just building products anymore. They're not just building successful products. They're not just solving for a product management organization, but they're actually focused on all of that and more, and how to build a company. And then, of course, the cherry on top is the product leader who has achieved commercial success, has done all of those things, and in looking back on their career, is now at that stage where they're building categories. And this is such an exciting time in a product leader's career and for a business, because these are the stories that make up streaming service, multi-season events on Netflix or Apple TV, where we read about companies that have defined and created categories, whether the ride-sharing products or whether streaming content products. So as we think about all of these various stages of a product leader's career, what stage of a career might your first product leader come from? What's important to you? How might you optimize your decisions and your search when you think about the product leader, your first product leader who you are going to hire? As we talk about product leaders, I'm going to be talking a lot today about personas. Titles are funny things. And you could survey 100 different technology companies at different stages and scales of business, and you're going to find a real smattering of titles used interchangeably. Head of product used to be only referred to as a very early stage company persona of product leader, but there's plenty of organizations today who are big tech or scale-up companies who use and apply the title of head of product to perhaps a leader of one product line of a multi-product ecosystem. Sometimes VP of product is used probably the most used title that could mean many different things. Could mean the one product leader of a business. It could mean, the person who's responsible for a product line or an industry subject matter expert product leader. And then, of course, chief product officer. We often have a vision in our mind of what a chief product officer persona candidate might be, but I remember very clearly not that long ago when we were engaged for a chief product officer by title search, but that company was a pre-Series A backed company and the organization only had 13 employees. So they wanted to use that title. It was part of an attraction strategy. Would that typically be who a chief product officer is? These are all questions that we can think about and ask ourselves. So we're going to really focus on 3 personas. And to make life easy, I'm going to apply these titles to those personas. So let's talk about our first persona of product leader. And as we're talking about these 3 different personas, I want you to be thinking about which one of these personas best describes the leader who you have identified would be important to your business at this stage, or who might you be thinking about hiring in 2024? So the head of product persona is, I'm going to refer to this person as the true startup product leader. This person is tasked with getting the product and the business to product market fit. And oftentimes when this persona of leader joins a business, part of the undertaking of this person is to move the business from something to something. And one example that we often find in this scenario of company and product leader is that oftentimes the business has been very engineering led. So one of the co-founders is typically a CTO, and they are the one in the driver's seat making all of the big decisions. And so everyone has been marching very much to the drumbeat of being an engineering-centric business. Let's build something that's going to work and work and work. And now with the introduction of a product leader, it's time to begin to move that business from being largely engineering-led towards a more product-led business. This is a very exciting time. And at some point, every product-centric business is going to have to go through that chasm, through that journey. So this is typically where it happens. And common amongst this persona of product leader is resource constraints. That's right. There's never going to be enough engineers for all the things that need to be done. Get over it. This person's going to just, step into that business and lead them through that time. This persona of product leader also begins to talk about and introduce this concept of product craft. And so, the degree to which the idea of product craft gets applied to the business certainly depends upon many factors, resources, of course, being a big part of that. But there is that introduction that we want to begin to apply some real fundamentals, some real product principles in how we deliver value to our customers and to our users. But for a lot of companies and organizations, this person is really going to be focused on delivery of those features and the value to customers, making sure that people that you're delivering what you promise, that it is adding value, and that you're starting to get data that you can iterate on and really begin to create some really great products that people love to use and never churn out of. This type of business is often very scrappy, and the head of product is the chief scrappy master. They're going to be getting things done all over the place in the business and really building in those earliest days. And this persona of product leader is the person who's going to help those often first-time founders on their journey of letting go. And this is a very interesting time. Will the founder have learned to let go when they hire their first head of product? Questions are always out. I'd love your feedback. Add that to the chat. Have you ever been a product leader working with a founder who has or hasn't learned to let go? So that's a really fun time. So the next persona of person I'm going to call a VP of product persona. And basically, this persona of person begins to apply leadership and management to the business, where everything begins to formalize. And the product organization begins to often make some real changes. It's not unusual for this persona of leader to come into a business and say things like, well, I inherited a team who they had hired to be their first, couple of product hires, but they weren't really product managers. Maybe they were BAs, maybe they were product owners. And so this leader comes in with some real opinions about how to formalize everything: the organization, the processes, the priorities, and they really begin to work on developing that organization of product, which would include design, which would include the data side, which would include all of the other pieces, research, customer feedback, ensuring all those loops are closed. This is really the time that all of these things begin to take shape, and there becomes a rise of a narrative that begins to really include go to market and making sure that everything that the organization is investing in product and seeing that through into the market is actually being, optimized in a best of way in how they go to market with those products. Craft best practices begins to become a greater priority. The standard of hiring of product talent begins to rise. And this person really is the person who takes that baton and that product roadmap from founders, and they now are held accountable in that first persona with a head of. Might not be unusual that a co-founder would still be the ultimate product decision maker and own the roadmap. But in this case, with a VP product persona, this person owns that long-term product strategy and roadmap. And then I want to talk about the chief product officer persona. And just a reminder that while I'm using these titles, this is more of a persona. You watching this, listening to this today might not be ready to apply a C-suite layer yet, but the things that we're going to talk about would be applied to an SVP or a VP level working title for your organization. So broadly speaking, the CPO persona is a person who their central role is to deliver scale of the product and its ecosystem, scale of ARR, revenue, user growth, perhaps scaling, I mentioned partner ecosystems or driving growth through API integration strategies. This persona is really focused on building a business. They're not going to be so much in the tactics of the product from a execution delivery perspective. They are truly leading. So there's a separation here, leading, not managing. And this person is accountable for ARR. They're probably going to have a P&L to be managing. They are reporting into a board, communicating with the board. They're going to be meeting with investors. This person typically is in charge of evaluating build, buy, partner opportunities and trade-offs and how to get and deliver that scale in the most practical, cost-effective, most viable way. This person might be thinking about innovation, new product introductions, really has a long-term roadmap. If we go back to what we began talking about today, this is that person who would be solving for who you are if you're hiring for someone who you want to become. So remember, we talked about you're either hiring for who you are today and some immediate red flag issues that you've got, or you're going to be hiring for who you're trying to become. This is that hire who's going to help get you to where you are trying to go in the long term. This person is very go-to-market centric. In fact, in some organizations, product marketing rolls up into this person. This person is a true partner to the CEO. So yes, of course, it goes without saying they own the product roadmap, but they are a partner to the CEO who in many cases will still be a founder, or in some cases, the founder has exited and there is a new incoming CEO. And in this C-suite layer are hired to take it to the home run. Now, I'm not suggesting that things are going to go wrong in your journey to hiring your first product leader, but let's be pragmatic and think ahead to what might go wrong. And I'm not going to cover off everything, but I want to highlight a few of the most likely roadblock or scenarios that we've seen unfold that could complicate your hiring decision, because ultimately you're the boss. You're in the driver's seat and you're the one making the decisions. And so I'm going to point out really 4 key areas where things are likely to get a little bit messy. First of all, we're going to talk more in a couple of slides about what a passive strategy is, but a passive strategy is the number one reason a search is likely to take longer than expected, and for leaders like yourself to experience frustration. What does it mean? Well, we'll get into that in a second, but basically not a lot is happening proactively. You are sitting around waiting for something to happen. TBD. We'll talk about that shortly. The next most common factor that complicates a search is persona ambiguity, which is why we've spent most of our time today talking about the different personas of product leader and who it is who you might need to hire. Because once you really have the clarity around what you're trying to achieve with the hire, and therefore who it is you are likely to need to meet to be able to make a decision from, the more likely you're going to have success capturing that community in the people you meet, and then, being able to determine who is best for your business and who is likely to take you to where you're trying to get to. Analysis paralysis is an interesting challenge to have when interviewing product leaders. And largely that comes from the fact that product leaders are some of the most engaging, captivating leaders you could ever sit down and talk with. They are the people with the stories of businesses that they've built, of products that they have stood up. They have roadblocks, they have taken those down, challenges, sit down and listen to what they have to say. They are very engaging because they can look at a business from so many points of view, from the customer, from the market, from the user, from an integration landscape category perspective. And often their journey into product didn't originate in product. So they have experiences, whether it be from an engineering background or a sales background or a subject matter area of expertise. They have something to say, and it's often very interesting. So what that could mean as a CEO founder, you could spend all of your time doing interviews and just being captivated by everyone you've met, but not getting to a decision on who is best for your business or who you should actually pull the trigger on, because one could enter into, I just, love meeting these people. And that leads into the final piece that could complicate a search and really, create some challenging situations, which is because of the intoxicating nature of these candidates and the never-ending stream of interviewing, searches could run on for far too long. And therefore, we could end up with some real baggage or history. And what you as a founder CEO are trying to avoid is a candidate whose feedback about the search is they're still looking. I mean, I heard about this 9 months ago. I heard about this 12 months ago. I think I heard about this, a couple of years ago when they were looking. That is the very thing you're trying to avoid. You want to be making very intentional moves to meet with, curate, select from, make decisions on the greatest pool of candidates likely to be relevant to who you need. So, how do we do that? How to begin? Well, I'm going to talk today very quickly about 3 approaches to take when you, founder CEO, are ready to hire your first product leader. I'm going to talk first about the passive approach. The passive approach is what I've already mentioned. It's passive. You're waiting for things to happen. What does this look like? Well, this looks like someone in your organization puts up a posting somewhere, and then everybody waits. Now, you're not the one waiting because you're running a business. So you're going to push this down to the person who works for the person who works for the person who works for you. And then they're going to be sitting at the screen waiting, hoping that The perfect person is creeping your company, is following your every move, waiting for the day that you're looking for someone who's going to run product, and then they're applying, they're pressing a button and submitting their resume candidacy to a posting. Okay, you didn't have to do anything. Cost to this is nominal. It's a passive approach. The challenge with a passive approach is that no one really owns the outcome. And that's not who you are as a business leader, because you're a business leader. Someone gave you a lot of money. An investor gave you a lot of money to build a business and to deliver value to the industry. And if there's an investor involved, guess what? You need to grow. So this is probably not what you really want to do, but sometimes in cost-cutting economies, people think that it's the right thing to do. Okay, so your decision, it's an option. Go for it. Another model of recruiting for your first product leader is to apply the inner circle model. Hey, sometimes this works amazingly. This means that you and your ELT are leveraging your networks. You're talking to everybody who you know. Your people are talking to everyone, and you're engaging with a community. Now, the interesting thing about this is that when it works, it often works fabulous. But what it is then assuming is that the people in your networks can do the job that they need to do for you. So they either, will satisfy that short term, or they have done something at scale and solve for the long term, that they have those experiences that you need. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes what can happen is that where the initial cultural alignment is thumbs up, we love that person, they're amazing, I know them, it's so great. The community of employees then begins to be very homogenous. Everyone has a very similar, age and stage of life, similar product experiences, similar everything. And sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes you might not have a very diverse pool of people at that leadership level. Sometimes. The other downside is that no one still really owns the outcome. It's kind of like out to everybody, like, hey, let's all see who we know and if anybody pops up. So nobody really owns this problem. Okay. The third approach is the engaged model. And the engaged model is what used to be called the retained model, which is that you as a business leader are going to engage a partner who has done this before, who is, someone who is going to own it. So in other examples, no one owns it. Now, in this case, someone's going to own it because you're engaging them. In fact, you're retaining them. And now I want to also point out this model of engaged works best when who you are engaging is a subject matter expert in the function in which you are engaging them. Because when that happens, that's the magic, because they have already done these searches before and it's familiar to them and they have a starting point and they can anticipate roadblocks and they have a process that enables them to accelerate to get to the people who you will ultimately want to meet and make selections from. Okay? The role of an engaged partner is to convert curiosity. I love that term, converting curiosity, because whereby if someone from a tech company reaches out to a candidate in the market out there somewhere saying, hey, we think you'd be great as our head of product over here. One of two things could happen. That person might look at that tech company and say, wow, I'd love to work with them, for them, solve for that problem, work on those types of experiences. Or that candidate might make a wrong assumption about what it is that business is trying to do and where they're trying to go. Because, we all know that sometimes our companies publicly say one thing, but we're actually trying to stand up something new over here, or we're actually going to try to scale and grow and launch something new over here. And that's actually going to be the reason why you're hiring this person, but they won't see that based on all of the public facing data that you have out about your company. So there's no one really to either dispel, right? Or validate or convert that person to meeting with you, even to say, yeah, I don't want to work on that problem. So, well, actually, that's actually not even really why, what the product is that you'll be working on. There's no one engaged with that person. They're going to make some wrong assumptions. So anyways, these are some of the various variables, 2, 3 broad search strategies that you might apply in how you're going to search for your very first head of product. I hope you're all still following me and with me and enjoying your lunch or your morning coffee. We are almost on the home stretch. I now want to talk about 2 real-world examples of software vendors, B2B SaaS companies that we've worked with for whom we've done these types of things. And I'm happy to, in a meeting with you, tell you who these companies are and get into a lot more detail. But for the purpose of this is a public broadcast, this company, this first client, very successful PLG-centric B2B SaaS business, okay? When we met them, they had just done 50 million ARR. They were largely a B2B SaaS company, but there was an element that was sort of a consumer piece on the very end. And they were in the fun category of marketing tech, MarTech, with some really big elephant leaders in that category. Up until the point of our engagement, one of the co-founders had been in a dual CPTO type of role, not uncommon amongst our clients. And they had built a very successful business. Product was a large group, 25 people reporting into 2 leaders. And this was the season. This was the time when the business made the decision that it is time to level up. We're going to bring on board a real product leader. They wanted to hire a chief product officer, but in their language, the title they actually hired the person at was an SVP of product, but the equivalent, it was a CPO equivalent role. And the vision of that for that hire was to really formalize how they went to market, their product and design practices and everything, and how they did product, and to get to 100 million ARR within 3 years. A couple of fun facts. We presented the first round of candidates on day 7. So imagine a search kickoff, and 7 business days later, the client was evaluating candidates, and we were booking them on interviews, okay? The search was completed in 33 business days, all right? The candidate who they hired had achieved all of the things that this client wanted them to achieve. And they had come from a product category much like their business. And so here's a few facts about the candidate. Had built 2 PLG-based businesses, had done 2 exits. That was very important to the client. They had, in their last role where they had been for 3+ years, had stepped into a product organization of 18 and built it to 95. The business had been doing 170 million when they joined, and under that person's leadership, it grew to 350 million. Yes, you heard that right. And the plan at the forecasted sales of the year that they left was to do $500 million. So this person was very aligned to the client and building that business. The next company, very different business scenario, also a B2B SaaS company. Interestingly, revenues greater than $1 billion, okay? Publicly traded, B2B SaaS product, and they were launching a net new product category. So think about an organization that is successful, okay? Making money, profitable, $1 billion plus, but there's some kind of a brand new product innovation happening, which the world doesn't know about. And as a result, they needed a partner to go to market into all of the competing organizations of this new product category and identify who those product leaders were, identify the best ones who had actually built business, not maintained, but had built new product businesses, and then convert curiosity and have them meet with this organization. And that is what happened. This search was completed in fewer than 65 business days. And we attracted such a candidate, as I just mentioned, from a competitive product category where they had stood up that business from pretty much zero to triple digit hundreds of millions and wanted to do it again, wanted to build again. And so, two very different examples, but both that startup, scrappy product leader mindset to being able to unlock growth at scale. I'm going to end with a few thoughts for you, a few reminders for you, no matter where your stage of business is. First of all, hiring is always about attracting. It's about taking your message into the industry to candidates and to individuals who may not even know about your organization, who may not understand the things that you are trying to achieve in business, and capturing their interest and converting their curiosity and getting them to engage with you so that you can identify and who might be the best candidate for you and draw from the best pool of candidates for your business. And in all things, when it comes to recruitment, you are going to hire a real human being. You're not going to hire a unicorn. This term was, just a couple of years ago, this term was very popular when we would meet with a client and they would describe the ideal persona. They'd often laugh and say, ha, 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 I'm not even sure that person exists. I guess we're looking for a unicorn. No, you're not. You're not looking for a unicorn. You're looking for a real person. There's going to be trade-offs in who it is, who you're going to hire, but you're going to hire someone to build your business with you. Scarcity of talent will cost you more and will take longer, which is why if you think about your business and what you're trying to do in your business, if the persona of person who you need to hire you believe is rare and scarce, most likely it's going to take you longer, which means you've got some big decisions to make. Do you want to try to do it on your own, or are you going to apply your community approach, right? Your community effort to recruitment, or are you going to go out and unlock an engaged model? Leaders, CEOs and founders who are leaders remove roadblocks in a search process. And so if you today are in a search and you're trying to find a product leader for your business and you're hitting roadblocks and walls, I just want to encourage you, look at what is happening and start to think about how can we take down some of the things that are holding us back from making the best hiring decision that we can make. Leaders make decisions. Leaders surround themselves with other leaders in all parts of their business. Listen, if you're going to get audited by the CRA or your US government, you're going to surround yourself with those finance and auditing leaders, right? It applies to HR, it applies to sales and revenue. You want leaders who are going to make it happen for you. A search partner is certainly no different because you are the CEO, you are the leader, and when it comes to recruiting product talent, so are we. So I'd love to take some questions from you now. I know that we've got Pauline, who is in our Zoom group too, who's going to share with us some of the questions that pop up in our chat thread. And I welcome any, I think I see a chat here. Got it. Well, it is awesome to have been with you today. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time over your lunch or your morning coffee. And again, my name is Heidi Ram. I'm with Martyn Bassett Associates. Happy to take your calls and emails, and we'll be in touch real soon. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.